Hey guys, what's up? It is your friendly neighborhood UberGoose here. I want to talk to you guys today about a few things, a few topics. We're going to start with a bit of like a 7.1.5 and Nighthold kind of meta update, kind of updating my ideas compared to my older videos, mostly because they're not outdated per se, but a few of the things that I've thought about and maybe have put on those videos have changed a little bit. So I do want to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about 7.2 related stuff. But before that, I first of all want to thank each and every one of you who is subscribed to this channel, especially all of you guys who have subscribed recently because of all the WoW content. I really, really appreciate you guys, and I've now hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, as long as I haven't had some sort of mass unsubscribe. Let me just double check. Pretty sure I'm at 10k, so thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. So let's talk about the metagame stuff. So first things first, this is pretty much the talent build I'm running for most of Nighthold. My raid guild is 3 out of 10 mythic at the moment for Nighthold, which is pretty much where most people are at. In fact, if we were to get one more boss down, we would be 20th on our realm, which is Melganis, very, very heavily populated horde server. And so, yeah, we're above 10k. Awesome. So we would gain 20 some odd ranks just from downing a 4th boss. So a lot of people are stuck at 3 out of 10. After the first 3 bosses, it starts to ramp up in difficulty dramatically, and we've decided to start on Croesus, and after one full night of wipes, I think we could do it eventually. It might take some time. We'll see. But, yeah, for most of Nighthold, I am just running the very basic talent build where we go Cenarian Ward, Displacer Beast, Guardian Affinity, Typhoon, Cultivation, Flourish, and then this is either Spring Blossoms or Inner Peace, depending on the fight. I feel like I'm running Inner Peace a lot more on the higher difficulty ones, and then Spring Blossoms generally on the easier ones. And I think that might just be coincidence. So in Nighthold, I would say I go Spring Blossoms for Scorpiron, Inner Peace for... And for the first 3 bosses I'm talking about Mythic, Inner Peace is going to be for both Chronomatic Anomaly and Trilliax, also because both have a lot of movement and you can't get the most value out of Spring Blossoms. And then once you get to the top floor, like the outside, Spellblade Alluriel, I run Inner Peace. Tichondrius, I run Spring Blossoms. Croesus, I run Inner Peace. Botanist, I run Inner Peace, I'm pretty sure. And then I go Spring Blossoms on Star Augur, and then Inner Peace for both Elisande and Gul'dan. So I do switch a lot, and I do have a shitload. I'm a scribe, so I have a shitload of those books that can let your whole raid change talents. Highly recommend that, by the way. It saves so much time, and they're super cheap to make now. So that's pretty much it for the 7.1.5 meta stuff. I do think that Nighthold is a very good raid, and both tier bonuses are super, super powerful. Both 2 and 4 are actually insanely strong. So definitely try and get your hands on the 4-piece. In terms of trinkets, the Celestial map is real strong. The cake is now really strong now that it's been buffed. And then both the Ephemeral Paradox and Alluriel's Mirror are beyond dog shit. And you'd probably be better off using like 10 item level, honestly more than 10 item levels lower Emerald Nightmare trinkets. They're just really, really, really bad trinkets. So definitely avoid those. If you have nothing better, just wait. One of these next few days, there will be a world quest for a stat stick. Just use the stat stick. Guaranteed to be better than those 2. It's just ridiculous. And I think that pretty much covers 7.1.5. It does turn out that Moment of Clarity is still dog shit. So there you go. Now let's talk about 7.2, because this is where all the interesting shit is occurring. So 7.2. I actually do believe that there will be talent changes. I am actually on the PTR version of Wowhead. So this is all updated to 7.2 PTR, which is to say nothing changed. Which, I'm going to say, I do think that we switched talents in 7.2, and that's going to be because of outside influences. In the talent tree itself, everything is the same power as it is on live. No numbers have been changed, nothing's been moved around, no nothing. So why would we change? Mostly because of our tier 20 set, as well as our artifact weapon. So I do believe that we are going to be going back to Prosperity Soul of the Forest, and I will explain why when we get there. But just keep this in mind. And if you don't know what this does, basically every time you Swift Mend, you're going to want to follow it up with a Wild Growth. That Wild Growth will heal for 75% more healing than a normal Wild Growth would. So almost 2 times healing per Wild Growth after a Swift Mend only. Prosperity gives you 2 Swift Mend charges, and the base cooldown is 27 seconds instead of 30. Okay? So keep that in mind, and we'll talk about some stuff. So next, we're going to talk about the artifact weapons. I'm going to just info dump you real quick on artifact weapons in 7.2 if you haven't kept up. Basically, at the beginning of 7.2, we're going to be able to empower our artifact weapons. I believe this is only possible once you have at least 35 points, but I could definitely be wrong about that. I'm not certain. All I know is that if you have above 35, all of the extra ones get refunded because your Paragon point is only 1 point now, and then you also get this new Paragon point once you empower your weapon. Once your weapon is empowered, all artifact power acquired before empowering it can no longer be used. So keep that also in mind. So you don't save artifact power, don't bank it until 7.2 and be like, yeah, I'm going to have such a head start. You won't. And basically, you just do a small quest line, you empower your artifact, your Paragon point gets refunded, goes down to 1, and then it unlocks this part, which gives you a new Paragon point at the end. This is unupdated. Interesting, because this was updated just the other day. I'm still on PTR version. Weird. That is actually weird, really bizarre. But basically, the combination of the old Paragon point at 1 point and the new beginning of the new leg of the tree, or root of the tree, whatever, is actually pretty much equivalent to having 20 points in the Paragon point. In terms of healing, it is more, actually. It's 0.5% more. In terms of damage, it's a little less. Stamina, a little less. Because, of course, with the old Paragon point, you got 20% damage from the whole thing. Stamina, you got... why can't I math? 15% stamina from the whole thing, and here you're only getting 10 of each. However, again, you get a shitload of points refunded, and once you start filling this in, you'll be caught right back up. And the goal of that is to basically mean that your power level between pre-7.2 and post-7.2 is completely unchanged. That's the goal, right? Like, either you are slightly stronger once you empower your weapon, or you're, at worst, the same. So it's not a detriment to upgrade your artifact weapon. Once you're done with this point, then you move on to our new 4-point trait. All of these 3-point traits, by the way, so Grove Walker, Natural Mending, Essence of Nordrassil, Armor of the Ancients, Blessing of the World Tree, these 3 at the bottom, and then this garbage here. All of those are going to be 4-point traits now, so you'll also have to fill this back out. I don't know if you have to fill this out before you move into this. That I'm not sure about. I don't know if anybody knows, but they will all have 1 more point, which is cool. And then you get your new 4-point trait, which is increases the duration of Essence of Ganir by 1 second, which is, of course, your artifact ability. So all of your hots are going to be ticking 2 times as fast for up to 12 seconds now instead of 8. And then, of course, you can get relics that modify this up to a total of 15 total seconds of Essence of Ganir, because, of course, you can put 3 relics into this, putting it to 7 extra seconds. I think this is a very powerful trait. It does make using Essence of Ganir feel a bit better in general. You can kind of preemptively use it a lot more now. At 8 seconds, you kind of need to use it after you have pretty much everything applied. Otherwise, it is very weak. Once you actually get this new trait, it's going to be better than it is now to do it early, but you're still going to want to wait until you pretty much have everything out. But now that it's 12 seconds, like, if you put out, like, 6 or 7 rejuves, you know, they're not even going to get full benefit from this now, right? If a rejuve ticks for 6 seconds before you Essence of Ganir, it's going to have fallen off by the end of it, presumably, you know, if nothing else gets changed. So, you know, it's kind of a give and take, you know. I think that it is generally just better now, because you can kind of be like, okay, I'm going to wild growth in the next, like, 5 seconds. So let me just get some rejuves out. Let me Essence of Ganir, get some rejuves out, then Wild Growth, and all of those get full benefit from the Essence of Ganir, which is awesome. Next, we have a 1-point trait, which honestly should be a gold trait, assuming that the number is not terrible. Joy of Spring, Efflorescence's healing increases by 0% every 2 seconds. The 0% is going to be an actual number at some point. That is just a placeholder. It's a completely normal placeholder to be used in, the event of a number. For example, I think on Wowhead, like Siphon Life, the Warlock Affliction talent, still says like deals 0 shadow damage or something like that. So it's just a placeholder, right? It's not like it's a 0.5% and it got rounded down somehow. Pure placeholder. But I was looking at it and I think if you crunch the numbers, it's really good. If the number is 2% every 2 seconds, that doesn't sound exciting, okay? But 2% every 2 seconds means the last tick presumably will do 30% more healing, right? Because it lasts 30 seconds. If you get 2% every 2 seconds, it's just 1% every second, which is equivalent to 30% over a 30-second duration, which means that the average extra healing that this is going to do is going to be 15%. Right? And if you have a little bit of foresight, you can kind of skew that 15% higher and higher. For example, putting this down when there's low damage and then high damage is coming near the end of its duration, you can skew that number higher and higher. And then, of course, if you compare it to the Essence of Nordrassil, prior to 7.2, the highest that this would go without relics would be 15%. So even if it's just 2% every 2 seconds, it's effectively a 1-point Essence of Nordrassil, which is pretty cool, right? And again, it does have the benefit of if you have any sort of foresight, you can kind of plan it out, ahead of time. Also worth noting, if this is upwards of like 5%, then the last bit is going to be 75% bonus healing, which is almost double from Efflo, which is very, very strong, right? So I think as long as this is between 2 and 5%, as long as those are the lower and upper bounds, it's going to be very strong without being overpowered. If it's above 5%, I could easily see this being overpowered, so I kind of hope they don't do that because I don't want to see it nerfed. But I think that this is a really powerful trait and gets even more powerful with the tier set, which, again, we'll talk about in a minute. Then we have our gold trait, which is not so good. This is deep-rooted. It, when one of your restoration heal over time effects heals the target below 35% health, its duration is refreshed. I see a few problems with this. One, they are not just instantly refreshed when the target drops below 35% health, right? They actually need to do a healing tick in that health window when they're below 35%. That's part of the problem I see with it, because yeah, sometimes people are dropping below 35% health in raids. In fact, tanks might even do it relatively often. However, it has the trouble of the hot has to actually heal at that point, right? So if anybody has a big heal cooldown that does healing instantly, you're probably not going to get anything refreshed, even if you have hots on a person under 35% health, right? For example, if a big burst comes in and I hit Tranquility, my Tranquility will probably heal them with the initial tick of just being cast above 35% health, therefore not refreshing any of my hots. Even that issue aside, refreshing a hot that's like new, like if I put a new rejuve on a target who's below 35% health, I'm getting 1 free tick out of it. Right? So I need the hots to actually have been used at least a little bit before this is actually valuable at all. Because getting 1 free tick on rejuve sounds pretty good, except when you figure out that it's not a common occurrence, right? Like you can get 1 free tick out of rejuve from having 1 more relic in persistence, right? So it's not very powerful in general. It is better on the faster ticking hots. For example, Wild Growth will probably be refreshed quite often with this gold trait, and that's great, right? And for tank healing, I'm sure this is awesome, but it just, I don't think it's good enough. It's fine, obviously. We're putting a point into it. to get to our Paragon. It's not like we can just avoid it. So we're gonna take it, and it's gonna be fine, but not very exciting in my opinion. And then we have the new Paragon trait. This was updated for some reason. We know what the new Paragon trait's going to be. It is not increases damage dealt by 1% per point for 50 points. What it actually is going to be is a proc at 1.37 procs per minute that increases your main stat, in our case intellect, by an amount for 10 seconds. 1.37 procs per minute with 10 seconds is like, I don't fucking know, some number, right? Like a quarter uptime, somewhere around a quarter uptime. And the only thing that scales with more points is the amount of int you get. The initial numbers, which they have clarified are very placeholder and very subject to change, are 2,000 int for the first point, scaling all the way up to 200 short of 12,000 int at the 50th point. So 11,800 int for the 50th point. So it's actually not very powerful, and it's mostly just there to be like, oh, okay, artifact power still matters for you forever, right? And you just keep putting points into it. And, you get slightly stronger every week or so, and who cares, right? It's really not going to be a huge impact, and that's totally fine. And Resto Druid does have the benefit that proc effects that increase our healing, they don't snapshot, but we're going to always have healing going. Right, we don't have to go, oh shit, we have a proc, now we have to react and try and do a lot of healing. The proc will just make our healing better whenever it happens. And that's it. It's not a huge deal. We don't have to make a weak aura for it. None of that shit. We can just be like, oh, cool. Okay, more healing is happening. Nice. And obviously, if it syncs up with damage, awesome. If it doesn't, whatever, right? I don't think there's too terribly much to say about it. But, yeah, it's fine. I also am now realizing that I forgot to talk about the new relic thing in my info dump about artifacts, so I apologize, but let's talk about it now. Relics are getting a slight change. Relics on their own, no change at all. However, with the Order Hall, there's, I think, 2 new tiers of upgrades, and the second one, the final upgrade tier, makes it so all relics that you get have 2 traits on them. The first trait it's predetermined. It is determined by what relic is dropping, right? So, for example, if a boss drops a certain relic now, they're going to drop that same relic, therefore the same trait, after you have that upgrade. However, there's a second trait tacked onto it, and that one is rolled upon the relic being dropped. It is random, and you might be like, ooh, why is there more random? But in the Q&A that Ian and Lore just did on Thursday, we found out that it's actually awesome. I think that the way that they've executed it is really, really good. First of all, you cannot get the same trait 2 times on a relic. The highest amount of a trait that you can ever have is just going to be 3, right? Just 3 extra. That's why I said 7 and not 10 on this. So you can only ever get a single trait up to 7 total points. The item level of the relic, that how it affects your weapon, is not going to change at all. And also the second trait is actually, it seems like they're going to be handpicked from a certain pool of things. Specifically, they said throughput traits. And I know it was in reference to DPS, because DPSers don't want to just be like, nice, it's my best in slot trait, I'm rolling on it. Oh, I got dodge chance. Great, right? Obviously nobody wants that. So you can't get that. The second trait will always be throughput. It'll always be main spec enhancing. And it'll never be one of your shitty traits. Now, in the case of Resto Druids, I don't know what that means. Obviously, we cannot get traits for these 3 because they're all at 1 point. And neither could we get any for that because that's 1 point. However, there are specifically 3 that I'm thinking about that might be excluded from the throughput thing. And those are Infusion of Nature, which reduces mana cost of wild growth, Knowledge of the Ancients, which increases mana regen, and then Armor of the Ancients, which just makes Ironbark reduce damage more. Now, we could still theoretically get traits for these as the second trait But I do believe that if there are going to be any excluded, it is going to be these three. And if it's not all three, I hope that it's the mana regen and the mana cost. I hope that those are the two that are excluded. But I don't know. Technically, all of these are throughput enhancing, right? More mana means more spells. More mana means more spells. More damage reduction means less healing is needed, right? Technically, you could make an argument for all of them, but I also hate all of them, so I hope that they don't exist. But that's pretty much it. So if you get super lucky and you get a higher item level relic that has like Grove Walker and Persistence on it, good for you, right? Congrats, you nailed it. If not, it's probably not going to matter much. We're just getting extra points in trades. Simple as that. So I'm excited for that part of the system for sure. Okay, so now we're going to move into the final part. Now that we are 20 minutes and 30 seconds into the video, we're going to move into the final part where we talk about tier 20. So I want to quickly remind you of the Joy of Spring trait, where Efflorescence ticks up in its overall healing over time. So it does more healing at the end rather than the beginning. And then also keep in mind that I do believe this will be the build. And then let's, give you a little just bait and switch, give you a little suspense. Let's actually look at tier 20. So first things first, the base tier 20, I believe this one probably drops from LFR. My assumption is the blue is LFR, the red is normal, the green is probably heroic, and then the one that's different is mythic, and then these two are PvP appearances in some way. I don't know for sure, but my assumption is the red is normal simply because it is tier 6, right? Tier 6 was red, so it would make sense to me that tier 20 would be red. Obviously, yes, this is tier 6, but it looks a lot better. Now you have these little bump outy things, right, in the chest where the skull was. It actually bumps out. The belt actually has a bump out thing. Both are bird skulls. That's pretty cool. Bird skulls look a lot better. I kind of like the wing placement a bit better. I think the wings look a little bit better in general. Feathers obviously look high, higher res and stuff like that. The helmet looks a lot better as well. I like it. I think it looks really cool. This is again, probably going to be the normal appearance, but let's look at the mythic. I'm going to go with the lighter color one because I think it looks cooler. So the lighter color one, first of all, now these skulls, instead of birds, they're like deer or like stags. Face is like closed and kind of hidden until spirit animals. So the face flaps open, and this will cycle through a few spirit animals, and then the shoulders, you have spirit stags on your shoulders now. And from a distance, it looks kind of just like blue stuff, but I think it looks sick, right? I think that this is awesome, and I really, really want Mythic Tier 20 just for that effect. I like it a lot. The way that it kind of meshes with the Tauren's back, I hope this gets fixed. If it doesn't, whatever, I'll just have like the white fur color or whatever so it meshes and it'll be fine. But yeah, this is what Tier 20 looks like. I'm stoked. So with that out of the way, let's look at the bonuses. So the bonuses, already the 4-piece has been buffed between the first build and the second build, and I started theory crafting the new talent stuff before that buff, and now it's just even better. So let's talk about it. The 2-piece is Swiftmend triggers up to 40% reduced cooldown based on the current healthier target, more reduced cooldown when used on a lower health target. So my assumption is that this is just a linear scale between 0 and 100% health. For example, if somebody is at exactly half health, the Swiftmend cooldown will be reduced by 20%. So 6 seconds off of the base cooldown of 30, putting it down to 24 if you heal somebody at half health. That's my assumption. It might scale linearly from a higher health point, like 20% health, rather than 0, because you'll never get the full reduced cooldown outside of something like that. But regardless, it's fine. It's not too exciting, and it is improved with the prosperity talent, given the fact that you can bank charges. So in the event that you Swiftmend heal somebody who has half health, and you take 20% off the cooldown, which is a little over 5 seconds of prosperity Swiftmend's cooldown, you can have the cooldown rolling and still use another Swiftmend and also bank the effect from the new Swiftmend while the first one is still charging. So I think that Prosperity improves this 2-piece, while this 2-piece also improves Prosperity. So I think it's a pretty good 2-piece. It's not exciting, and I think if you're not running Prosperity, Soul of the Forest, first of all, if you're not running Prosperity, I think the 2-piece is rather weak. If you are running Prosperity, I think you have to run Soul of the Forest. So I do believe that if you are going to have the 2-piece, you'd need to have Prosperity, you need to have Soul of the Forest, right? That's my assumption. The 4-piece is way more interesting, though. Swiftmend increases your Efflorescence healing by 400% for 8 seconds. Now, presumably, if you have base Swiftmend, and, just have the 2-piece, because obviously you have to have the 2-piece to have the 4-piece, this means that roughly every Spring Blossoms will be enhanced, or every Efflorescence will be enhanced at some point for 8 seconds to do 5 times healing. This is a bonus 400%, so it's a total of 500%, so 5 times healing. And so this is the part that really made me think, right? As in thinking emoji. So I think that this is really, really potent. So obviously, you look at this and you're like, oh shit, Efflo does actually a lot of healing in those 8 seconds. So then, right, if Efflo is going to do a lot of healing in that 8 seconds, you have to think back to Joy of Spring. You want those 8 seconds to be near the end, right? Because if they're near the end, then you just get even more healing out of the whole thing, because you're stacking 2% healing increases on top of each other, and you're just getting extra benefit out of the whole situation. So as long as you can predict, right? As long as you can predict about a 10-second window, 20 seconds in advance where healing is going to need to be done, you can combo these really, really well, right? So if you combo these really well, you're going to get a massive benefit out of this. Obviously, you're going to need to find somebody to Swiftmend, so it at least has some reduced cooldown from your 2-piece. But even if it doesn't, you're almost certainly running Prosperity, so it's okay. So you might be like, okay, but why, if you said the 2-piece isn't that good, would you say that this is the build? So you can combine 2 different tier sets to get 3 set bonus value, 3 different set bonuses. You can get the 2-piece of one of the tier sets and the 4-piece of the other tier set, because there are 6 pieces in each tier and you only need 2 and 4. You can have 4 pieces of one set and 2 pieces of the other and get the value from all of that. So I believe in tier 20 we're going to be running the 4-piece from tier 20 and then the 2-piece from tier 19, which whenever you wild growth for 7 seconds, so the duration of wild growth, you get 4,000 mastery, which is somewhere around 5% mastery. That means that all of your heal over time effects will increase the total healing you do to each target by an additional 5%. Right? So you combine that with these things, and then also with Spring Blossoms in most cases, and you start to see this sort of thing forming, right? Because you're waiting to the end of Efflo. You're then going to cast a Swiftmend that is going to make your Efflo do 5 times healing, and it's already amplified by Joy of Spring at this point. Then you're going to cast Wild Growth immediately after the Swiftmend. And if you do Wild Growth immediately after the Swiftmend, then the bonus healing from this, which is 8 seconds, should roughly line up with the mastery bonus from the 2-piece in tier 19, which lasts 7 seconds. So they should both generally be up with each other at all times. So you add that to the fact that you also probably rejuved a bunch for the past 10 seconds, maybe even didn't innervate to get all of those rejuves out, and then you might have also gotten a Dreamwalker proc, which will heal a shitload. Obviously, Dreamwalker proc will also get increased in the healing it does by the increased mastery from casting Wild Growth, while also Wild Growth heals more and, adds another hot and stuff like that. And then obviously you're also getting the Nature's Essence proc. Lots of instant healing is going to happen. And then over those 7 seconds after the wild growth, you're going to get the benefit from Joy of Spring combined with this, combined with 5% more healing per hot per target, combined with the fact that your wild growth is also just healing for 75% more. Plus, obviously, you have extra hots out because of Spring Blossoms, and you start to see all of these synergies just coming together, right? Just meshing into this giant ball of terrifying awesomeness. And I'm really excited for it. I do think that is going to be more HPS than the average Tranquility in all of that shit in combo with each other. And if that is true, which it might not be, but if it is true, you can do that every 30 seconds, right? In fact, you could do it more frequently than every 30 seconds, because the only thing that you're really limited by is Swiftmend, which also has a reduced cooldown. Obviously, each FLO you want to run the full duration, and you do want to do all of this near the end of FLO, but it doesn't hurt to toss in an extra one, earlier in an FLO if you need the healing. So I just think that this is potentially so powerful. And then you also can just add in the fact that you can also flourish all of that, right? And the wild growth will be flourished, and the flourish wild growth will maintain the 75% increased healing from Soul of the Forest. So I might be living in magical Christmas land. Obviously, we're going to have to be seeing the numbers before we can determine for sure if this is the thing. But it is worth noting that Prosperity Soul of the Forest is actually not that far behind Cenarian Ward Cultivation already, like in tier 19. They're actually relatively close. Cenarian Ward Cultivation generally pulls ahead on progression encounters simply due to the fact that people are always going to be dropping below 60% health, and you can have a very high uptime on Cultivation. But even with a super high uptime on Cultivation, Prosperity Soul of the Forest is close. Again, it might be within the ballpark, like 25,000 HPS or something like that on an average encounter. But it is worse at the moment. But I do think that in tier 20, we are going to make these talent changes simply due to the insane synergy with the 2-piece, the 4-piece, and also the 2-piece from tier 19 when used in concert with the 4-piece of tier 20. And then obviously the new trait makes all of that better as well. So those are my thoughts. Again, maybe I'm living in magical Christmas land, and you know what? If I am, I don't want to leave. I like it here. But that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully I will be uploading some footage of our mythic raiding in Nighthold in the near future. I have recorded a few mythic Scorpion kills and one chronomatic anomaly kill. Unfortunately, I was not recording when we were progressing on Trilliax for one reason or another. Or the one reason is that I forgot. Sorry, but I should have footage of chronomatic anomaly. I can post that at some point. I just need to figure out kind of a format for it, similar to this, except something that'll fit like a 4-minute time frame. So anyway, that's it. Again, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you later.